Hello everyone, this is Carla and welcome back to the studio, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Throwback Thursday. For this Thursday we are now going to shift into fall, and I will be using the Gilded Autumn Suite. So it contains the beautiful autumn bundle, which is this beautiful autumn photopolymer stamp set, along with 3 punches, a 2-pack of ribbon called the Basket Weave Metallic Ribbon Combo Pack, and acorn trinkets. There's 20 that comes in a package. There's a little bit more there because I did stock up on these before they retired, but I believe these may be in the clearance rack out on the website. And then it also has bundled with it some DSP and some foil. So this is the Gilded Autumn Specialty Designer Series paper. And one side has your fall prints and the other has some foil elements to it. And actually the first card we'll be doing, these shapes here on this DSP, you can punch them out with these punches right here, which I've already done in advance. So let me put that aside. And then there is the brushed metallic cardstock. I believe this is still current in our annual catalog. There's gold, bronze, and copper colored sheets in here. We are actually not going to be using this on our projects today. So let me go ahead and move our papers out of the way. And we'll go ahead and then we'll just move everything out of our way. And I'll bring in what we're going to be using. So for our first card, I have an 8.5 by 5.5 inch piece of crumb cake scored at 4 1/4. A 5 1/4 by 4 inch crumb cake. Then I also have a 3 by 3 very vanilla. And then I just cut a scrap piece of that DSP so then I can go ahead and punch out these pieces out of the DSP. Okay, so we'll just put, and you can kind of see that's how the foiling element is on the back of the paper. We'll actually be using this side of this paper in one of our other cards. So I'm going to take my card base and I'm going to fold and burnish this. And we'll set that aside. And then on this piece, I'm going to bring in my stamp that says, "My heart is grateful for you." And I'm going to ink that up with Cajun Craze. And we'll stamp that right in the middle. And then I will bring in my 2 1/4 inch punch. And I will punch this out. Line this up. We'll set that aside. And then for this piece, I'm going to do a little bit of distressing. So we're going to make a little bit of a mess here. So let me just kind of move this stuff out of the way. I'm going to take the edge of my scissors, and we're going to carefully do this so we don't cut ourselves because our paper snips really are sharp. And I'm just going to scrape all 4 edges. It'll give it a bit of a distressed look. I'm just going to be careful as far as I get to the ends, and make sure that my hands are not in the way. Just turn that. And then we got one more side. If I remember right, I think in our annual catalog there is a tool that you can get to go with our Take Your Pick tool that has an adapter piece that has like a round tip that has these slits in it, and then there's a blade in there that you can use to do the same effect with your papers instead of using your scissors. Okay, a little bit more on our edges. Okay. And take off some of the loose pieces. Get in a little bit. Okay, we're done with the scissors. Now let me get my lint roller, and we'll just pick all this up. Okay, so for this piece, I'm going to do some stamping. So I'm going to bring in my Crumb Cake ink. And then I'm going to bring in this scattered leaf stamp. And then I'm just going to randomly stamp some of these, going diagonally from the upper right hand corner down to the bottom left. I'll do one more down here. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in a piece of our ribbon, and I'm going to put some, actually what I want to do is I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of this, and I'm going to adhere this to our card base. And then I'm going to add some adhesive to the middle here. And then bring in our punched piece. And I'm just going to do a zigzag of this ribbon. Let's see, do we got enough? Looks good. So we'll just trim this. We'll just lay it down in the center here in that adhesive. This ribbon is a little bit stiff. Just bring that here, put that down. Actually, we'll trim this a little bit. so. And then I will bring in my dimensional. Put that on the back of the circle. And we'll put that right over our ribbon. Okay, and so these little leaves that I punched out, I'll bring in my mini dimensionals. And I'll add these to the back of my leaves. See, we're gonna put this one on here. I'll add that leaf up in this corner. And then this little tiny one, there's not a punch for it, so that I actually fussy cut. We'll put a mini dimensional on this one. We'll put that one right there. And then for our mint macaron maple leaf, we'll add that onto our punched piece. And then Cajun Craze maple leaf. We'll add that there. Then we'll add a dimensional to the back of these two oak leaves. And we'll have one over here, and then one right there. Now I'll also bring in my champagne rhinestone basic jewels. These are retired as well, so this package just has the mini ones on there. So they'll work well for our project. It's just to give it a little bit of sparkle. And we'll add one more right up there. Okay, so that's our first card. On to our second. Okay, so for my second card, I have an 11 by 4¼ inch piece of very vanilla thick cardstock, scored at 5.5. I have a piece of early espresso measuring 5¼ by 4, and then I have 4 pieces of the Gilded Autumn Specialty DSP. Now for these, they're actually the back sides of each other, so you can use the same sheet, just utilizing the different patterns. And then I have approximately a 4 by 1 inch scrap of very vanilla. We'll be stamping our greeting on this and die cutting. So I'm going to start off with folding my card base and burnishing it. Sure it stays so it folds evenly. And I apologize if the camera's shaking a little bit. I have my phone stand hooked up to the table itself, so of course when the table's shaking, that's going to shake as well. So I'm going to set that aside, and then on my piece of early espresso, I'm going to adhere these squares onto this piece right here. I'm just going to add a little bit of adhesive, and I'm just going to leave a bit of a border. And I'm not going to press these down quite yet, just in case if I have to move them around. And then I'm going to take the back of that piece and I'm going to put that next to it. Again, trying to line it up and leaving about the same amount of space around the outside, like so. And then we'll add this one. Down here. Just kind of eyeballing the one above it. Try to get it as close as I can. And then we'll add this piece. So with the seal, if you go to use it and the adhesive's not right at the tip and it's not advancing, you can use your silicone craft sheet and just roll it, and then it'll bring the adhesive to the tip of it. And then we'll go ahead and add this piece, kind of eyeballing the one above it and the one next to it. So this one, let's kind of line it up a little bit better. Okay. That looks good. We'll go ahead and we'll press those down. Okay, I'll set that aside. And then on my scrap piece, excuse me, excuse me, let me get a quick drink. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to stamp my greeting "Hey There" with my early espresso ink. I'm going to stamp that in the middle. Okay, so then we're going to bring in our mint macaron basket weave ribbon, and I'm going to wrap this around and I'm going to tie a knot. I'm going to give myself a little bit of ribbon so I can tie it. Piece off. And then I'm going to use my reverse tweezers, kind of be my third hand here, to just kind of hold this in place, so then that way I can tie my knot. So then I'll remove these, and then I'll just tie this, twist it so the knot's not so big. Okay, and kind of slide this over a little bit. Now, for this ribbon, because my greeting's going to go over it, I'm going to take a couple of glue dots, and these glue dots are from previous paper pumpkin kits, and then I'm going to add a couple of them to the back of this ribbon, just so that way it holds it down, and when I put my greeting over it, it won't be all floppy. So I'll put one more right there. We'll just kind of press those down a little bit, and then I'll remove little paper backings. Okay. And then I'll press, make sure that's centered, and I'll press that down. And then I'm going to bring in one of my acorn trinkets and some linen thread. I'll cut a piece off. And let's kind of move this stuff out of the way. And then I'm just going to tie this around the knot. Just kind of lift this a little bit. And then thread my acorn. So. And then I'm going to tie a knot. Tie a knot around the knot. Okay. And then I'll trim this down a little bit. Okay. So then I'm going to adhere this to my card base. And try and get it over the ribbon. Make sure I'm putting it on the right, not upside down. Center that on there like so. And then I'll trim the tails of this ribbon. Okay. Now I'm going to set this aside. It's almost done. I'm going to die cut this using this label die, and this comes from the Stylish Shapes dies. This is currently in our annual catalog. So for this part, I'm going to speed it up. It won't take too long anyway, but I'm going to speed up this part. Be right back. Okay, so let's bring our card back in and our little greeting. I'll bring in my silicone craft sheet, and I will add some adhesive to the back of this. And then, make sure we got it the right way, I will adhere it right over this ribbon. like so. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my champagne rhinestones, and I'll add a couple of these to my card. Add one down here, and then one right up in here. Okay, so that is our second card. On to our third. Okay, so for my third card, we are going to use the punches for this one. So I'm going to start off with a piece of very vanilla thick, measuring 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. I have another piece of very vanilla, measuring 4 3/8 by 2. I then have 3 pieces measuring 1.5 by 1.5 of very vanilla. And then I just have a scrap strip of very vanilla. We're going to stamp and punch our images off of this piece. So to start off, I'm going to fold and burnish my card base. And we'll set that aside. And then for our bigger piece here, I'm going to stamp "Have a Beautiful Day" in early espresso ink. And I'm going to stamp that down here in the bottom right hand side. Okay. We'll leave that open because we're going to use that again. Now I'm going to set this aside because I am going to use the Stampin' Cut and Emboss mini embossing folders. This is the Meadow Moments, and I am going to use this one here with these leaves. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to do all my die cutting and embossing all at the same time. So I'll set that aside. And then these 3 pieces here, each one of them is going to be die cut with this stylish shape. This is out of that same set of dies, the stylish shapes. It's the smaller square. So I'll be die cutting those out. And then for this piece, we're going to do some stamping. So I'm going to bring in the outlines for my maple leaf, my oak leaf, and for my acorn. So I'm going to stamp this more detailed outline image in early espresso. And stamp this one over here. Okay, and we'll close this up. And then I'm going to bring in a retired color, a nice golden yellow color called Bumblebee. So we'll use that. I also have another retired color, Terracotta Tile. There. And then for my acorn, the base part of it, I'm going to use Old Olive. And then for the top, another retired color, Soft Suede. Okay, so I have my filler stamps here. And we'll start off with our oak leaf. Ink this up. Make sure we got it all inked up. And then we're going to line this up. We're going to attempt to line this up. Okay, not too bad. And then for my maple leaf, hopefully I can get this lined up. The photopolymers, when you use colors like reds and pinks and even some of the purples, it will stain the photopolymer. I mean, it's clean, it still works, but sometimes, like for this one in particular, trying to see through it's a little bit hard, but it's not too bad. And then for my acorn, the base of it, I'm going to do an old olive. And then for the cap of it, in soft suede. Didn't get the corner. A little bit. Okay, that's not too bad. We'll go ahead and close these up. Now I'm going to bring in my punches. I'm just going to line this up. And then our maple leaf. Okay, let's try and get this lined up. And then our acorn. Okay, so I'm going to, let's see, we'll put some mini dimensionals on here, and this time I'm going to use my take your pick tool for these little mini ones. A little bit easier on getting them off the sheet and placing them where I want them on my pieces. Okay, so we'll set these aside. Okay, so my next part is going to be the die cutting and the embossing, so I'll be right back. Okay, so let's bring in all our pieces. So with that embossing folder, most of all the leaf image is up near the top. So I had, there's something all over this. So I just used this top part here to really put the embossing up near the top and leaving the area where I stamped a little bit more open. So I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to adhere this to our base. Center it. Like so. Okay, and then for each of our squares, I'm going to add some dimensional. I'm going to add 2 to each of them. I'm going to put them in the corners, the opposite corners. Okay, now I'm going to center these. Now I'm not going to press these down really hard because I want to make sure that I get them lined up. So I'm going to add the ones on the ends first. I'm going to try and line those up. And then add our middle one. Like so. Go straight. Okay, they look good. Now I'm going to bring in our little pieces here that we stamped and punched out. And I'll add my oak leaf over here. And then the maple leaf over on the end. And then I'll add my acorn in the middle. Like so. Now I'll bring in my champagne rhinestones again. And then I'll add 3 to this card as well. So I'll add one here. And we'll put one down here. And then one more over here. Okay, so that is our 3rd card. So let me move this stuff out of the way. Move this. And I'll bring in our cards that we made, the other 2. So we started off with this one right here, where we punched out the leaves out of the DSP. I did that before we came on. And then the second card here, we utilized that pretty DSP again. This one has a little bit more dimension to it. So we have that one. Let's just kind of move these down so you can see them really well. And then we have our 3rd one. That's all very vanilla, and we just have a little bit of pop of color with our punched out elements. So that's our projects for this Throwback Thursday. I thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like my videos, if you could subscribe, and then there is a little bell, a notification bell also below the video that you can click on, and it'll notify you whenever I have another video that comes up. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you next Thursday. Bye bye.